Right. That's it. We're live.
Love the music.
Hello?
Trinona what?
No more. Yeah. That's our theme music.
Considering the circumstances
Yeah.
here in Ireland, tomorrow is the lockdown again. Lockdown 2 version 2.0.
Yeah.
You know,
Well,
from tomorrow.
We just got to break free.
Yeah.
God knows we got to break free.
And those of you who are listening tonight as well, there's a big demo one tomorrow at 2:00 on O'Connell Bridge. I don't know who's organising it, but look out for it anyway. If you're not working or in the city, try and get to it, because the amount of people who are going to be out of their jobs this time, and it's coming up to Christmas. I mean, this is prime time, Christmas time. Christmas shopping, parents are getting ready for Santa, just general Christmas shopping, and people are going to be stuck. Not everyone can, shop online. Now, I don't want this live stream to be, about COVID, but we're stuck in a situation again twice this year.
Yeah. Are you going to
Not even December, huh?
Are you going to the thing tomorrow?
No, I'm working, but But those of you who won't be working, there'll be plenty, unfortunately, there'll be plenty of people losing their jobs tomorrow. Back on the PUP payments for the second time.
Yeah.
That's when the things are starting to move. And we're lucky. We're working, we have wage coming in and paying our bills and mortgages and rent and all that kind of stuff. We're very lucky.
I mean, I was drawing just a parallel there between. This almost reminds me of the Brexit sort of debate in a way. It's like we're in a perennial merry-go-round with this. Everybody's got themselves into a quagmire about it. It's like the Brexit argument where Theresa May just announced, "Oh, by the way, folks, we're going into another 3-month delay." It's like just because she's incompetent and can't do her job and get the thing done, the whole country has to go into another permanent. It was
I remember that. Yeah,
it reminds me of this. It's like people in Brexit voted to get free from the EU, and they just weren't getting allowed to do it. But this lockdown is actually there's a parallel between it. I think it's become the new thing. Everybody's talking about it every day of the week, same as Brexit was, and we just can't seem to find a way out of it. But some form of herd has to be looked at. But the other point about Brexit is that they're trying to redraft this Northern Ireland Protocol, which effectively keeps the North, keeps those in the North up there in the sort of in the EU a wee bit.
Yeah.
It's a shameful using of the border situation by the EU guys. They're just using that. I mean, your man Barnier was caught on camera saying, "And we must use Ireland to get our way. We must use Ireland." Yes, he did. They're using the border in Ireland. They don't give a damn about Ireland. They're just using it to scupper Brexit. What do you think?
Well, I was looking at the news today, and Boris has given them one last chance to back down. And I know from talking to you just in the last couple of days that they wanted the Belfast office, and then they didn't get this. Decided to concede. Right. Second thing is they wanted the EU officials and the Northern Ireland and the EU and UK to watch what's coming in. That to me is not a clean break. The Brexiteers want a clean break. It's actually insulting. It's like you can't manage your own borders and the goods coming in and out of the country. That's up to the British to do that.
Yeah, it's not a clean break at all.
It's like a teenager leaving the house the first time to go to college, and the mother keeps on turning up, standing on the doorstep. You want a clean break. That's it. You go. And I understand that they're trying to kind of make Boris, give him almost like a stick or a sweet, say, okay, you have He can look like he's won the deal. It's like patronising him. And that's disrespectful to any leader. What you think of Boris, here you are, Boris, the claim victory, even when they compromise. So it's like that's wrong too. So I think, to me, it's like clean break. That's the end of it. Nigel Farage actually came out as well today or yesterday and said he's going to, if he has to, if Boris kind of caved to the EU for some concession, he'd resurrect his party again. That's how far he'd go. Because the Brexiteers are not getting what they voted for.
Yeah, they're not getting it at all, yeah. DT's come in there, he says, I'll put the link up there if he wants to join us, just for a bit.
Yeah, because I can't see anything.
I'm trying to get that to come up there. Is it coming up, no?
No, just it'll comment from StreamYard.
Oh, yeah. That's that up there, yeah. Yeah, we're just saying...
there is.
We're just saying that I do think there's an awful parallel between this quagmire about COVID and the Brexit thing. It just remains just like deja vu. But I thought it was awful high-handed of Micheál Martin the other night to just stand there all pompous and say, "By the way, folks, you're going into another 6-week lockdown, effectively, which could go on for longer." When the evidence is relatively. It's their mismanagement of the whole problem that's causing it. They could have kept the virus out of the country, and they haven't done that. They should be hanging their heads in shame for failing to protect the country from it, and Britain as well. Britain's an island. Hello, it's like New Zealand. Your woman in New Zealand won that election with a landslide.
Yeah,
because she kept her country safe from the virus. If she was over here, somebody made the point this week. If she was over here, she would be called far right. But she wins by a landslide.
Yeah.
Which makes me think if we stood in elections, we'd do well,
Yeah, we probably would do well. And I'm not blaming the school. Sorry.
The people, it's such a big issue. The people need to be consulted on this. Sorry, go on ahead.
No, I'm saying that they're trying to blame schools and all the rest of it, and parents are getting mixed messages. And we're seeing the gym owner coming out today and saying, "I'm not closing my gym." And we need to see more non-compliance. People are afraid. They're not listening to their instincts, as if their instincts are gone on this. And I don't want to be COVID related today, but as you're saying, is a good parallel between Brexit and these lockdowns. We all know it's nothing to do with our health, and we all know it's nothing to do with protecting us. But I mean, I'm concerned about like the Brexiteers not getting what they deserve and what they've asked for 4 years ago, and they're still dealing with it. And there was an agreement put into place to kind of exit out of this, in a very, balanced way, and they're still fighting. How many weeks left? 2 months, 8 weeks until the end of the year. Less than that. And they're still fighting, and I know Barnier is going to England tomorrow to kind of get the things running again. But I don't think Boris is going to, take any nonsense from them. Hopefully, and just say, "Listen, we want a clean break. That's it. Goodbye. We've done everything we can." You cannot have EU officials in the country. That's it. We are well capable of doing. They are well capable of doing one of their own countries. The whole point of a Brexit, or an Irish Brexit, or a Brexit, or sorry.
Makes me very angry the way they use the border situation, the Irish border, to try and get their own way. And it's always the nationalists, so-called nationalists, that bring up the border. It's not going to be an issue. It's a made-up problem. It's just a manufactured problem.
Can you just go into more about how the
Paul's having a go at me because I was mentioning about your hair last week.
What's wrong with my hair?
No, it was mentioned last week. I was only having a laugh, but Paul's having a go at me because he said, "Did you see that comment?"
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I know I had to be cut, and I had to. I know that, and I'm lucky I got it done last week. Considering the circumstances. They're closed tomorrow. But I mean, can you just go into more about how they're trying to kind of keep
very smart. It's very smart. Looking very smart.
But don't what that means.
Not sure. I don't know what that means. Oh right. All right, Paul. That means just welcome aboard, everybody. Falsus, Jack.
All right.
I spelled it wrong, actually. Sorry. Forgive. It's Falsus. It's Jack. Welcome in. Just means welcome in. You know that, Karen, from your Irish. There you go. Falsus, Jack. Falsus. Give me the Falsus.
To everybody. To Gachdina.
Gachdina or Guler. DT's in. Welcome aboard.
Oh, hi, DT.
How's it going, everybody?
DT, you're in.
Sure, no, good to see you back.
Welcome in.
All right. What's the story? What are you talking about today?
Well, Brexit.
We're talking about the parallel between Brexit and the lockdown, and that we can't seem to. Brexit couldn't get free of it. They still can't. And this bloody lockdown thing is a quagmire. It seems to be no end point in sight. We can't seem to see an end point to it. What do you reckon?
Yeah, they're absolutely tanking the economy, and then they expect to get voted in next time. You know, lads, they're tanking the economy, and like when the economy is absolutely placed at such a disadvantage that it won't be able to recover fast enough to stay competitive in the global economy, then like that's going to mean austerity like on steroids, like that's coming next, like. And when the economic crash comes, like who's going to bail us out? Like the EU going to bail us out? Well, like all of their countries are doing this as well, you know, and like the entire economic energy is going to be taken out of the economy. Like it's no more transactions, no more work being done, no more people being hired. It's all imploding on itself, you know.
But I just think it's welcome to fascism. You know, the extraordinary power that the governments here are having over people is just shocking. What they can do on very flimsy evidence. At least there are people that are speaking out about it up here. They're saying there's no evidence to support lockdown. The man in Manchester is speaking out about it, and that senator, Karen, what was that guy's name, who said something that's like tyranny to bring it back in?
Oh, you mean
Michael somebody?
No, it's not Andy Durham. No.
No, that's Andy Burnham in Manchester.
Oh,
but
Michael
the senator,
McNamara. Beg your pardon.
Yeah,
Michael McNamara. Yeah, sorry.
He says if they bring in another lockdown, it's tyranny.
Yes.
Isn't it?
But when you make anyone, depending on the state for their payment, I mean, such a large scale, is this not normal, like unemployment levels? It's not like we're in a recession like that happens kind of, you know, every few years. This is state-funded unemployment that's, you know, organized by the state. That to me is obviously classic of, you know, communism. If you make people, you know, control a business owner to that extent where you're closing them down 1 minute and you're opening the other. Because I was listening to the news earlier on today, there's a lady talking about in Britain, and she said 1 minute reducing my stock, selling enough, not ordering, and then in the following week I'm ordering stocks. I'm told we're now in level such, you know, it was a different system up in England and in the north than you do here. There's different tiers. I don't understand this. Tier 3 is Manchester. You could be in tier 2 in different parts of the country, whereas where everybody's in lockdown here, level 5 or level 3 or whatever. But the woman is running a business, and she's saying 1 minute I'm not ordering stock, and the following week I am, based on different information come from the government. How are you supposed to run a business like that? You know, even when you're not closed, it's still confusing. And that is, you know, you're controlling. Sorry?
No, Karen, I was just going to agree with you. That's another thing that helps tank the economy, the lack of stability. Because one of the things that helps businesses grow is stability in the political situation. But the government is artificially introducing instability with all these ridiculous regulations. You know, so it's taking the stability out, but that's just sabotage, and that's another spanner in the works as well of the economy.
Yeah, and then you don't have any spending power because if people are on that COVID payment. They're getting €350. It'll be less after tax, but they don't have money to spend. And Christmas or not, you don't have money to spend because you're just surviving and getting the food and the bills. And if you are a family man or trying to run a family household or whatever, that's impossible. You're going from wages to a payment to the government, and then your mortgage is, not going to get paid. And the banks are saying, come in and they're going to help you out. That's not forever. So if you're trying to recover from the last lockdown, you're not going to recover from this one.
That's the thing. Like the amount of disposable income people have is one of the things that
keeps the money going. Keeps the world going.
And multiplies the economic activity basically. But that I forgot what I was going to say there. But I don't know if you noticed, but even things like electric companies and other people, landlords and stuff, they're all putting up their rent, putting up the electric bill, putting up all this stuff, putting up all the money. See, this is all signs of the intended collapse. They're not only going to increase the price once, they're going to keep increasing the price because the companies are screwed as well. When the individuals at the bottom are screwed, that's all going to filter up to the top, and it's going to the big companies will be insulated for a while because they're reserve capital, but they're going to be affected as well. There's only so much they can do with their reserve capital, and they can't even get jobs done or anything. They can't get jobs done. They can't get things because everybody has to self-isolate. So they can't even get any work done. They can't get economic transactions done. It's affecting them on a practical, practical
any projects. Yeah. And
Oh.
there's always this time of the year when the ESB and the gas goes up. And then obviously more people are going to be using their fuel at this time of the year.
Yeah.
So I know the weather's quite good at the moment. It's not that cold. We're not in that winter yet. But it'll be only 2 or 3 weeks and we're straight into winter, wet weather, cold weather. And the heating will be going on. The lights are on longer. And the ESB goes up, the gas and the oil and all the rest of it.
Yeah.
So anyway, struggle with that. On top of everything else.
That's basically a trademark of the Irish economy. That happens not only with electric companies putting up the bills when there's going to be a higher demand. It happens with say if you go into a shop and you're known to buy a certain item in the shop, then the shop will increase the price, and it doesn't cost the shop any extra. They'll actually make more money if they lower the price so you can buy more of them. But they just increase the price. Or even if you haven't bought it before, then you're going in for the first time, and they think you're going to buy it. It's what is it? It's €3 on the price tag, and oh no, the price is actually wrong. It's actually $3.50. That's the way Irish people do business. And landlords do it as well. Landlords how much is depending on who their clientele is, basically, if what case they're from. If someone's this middle class student, then they get incentives. They get informal incentives 1 month's deposit just in case something happens and they go mad or something like that. 1 month's deposit. But if someone from working class area comes along, I need 2 months deposit and 2 months deposit and a month's mental advance or something like that. You know what I mean? It's this kind of informal corruption on the top and also from the bottom level as well. Informal corruption. That's how the Irish economy is run. It's the typical example that I see most often now, because I'm not renting anymore. But the typical example that I see most often is if you think you're going to buy something, they increase the price. And I see that with shopping websites as well. Not going to name and shame because I might get in trouble, but even websites that sell things, Irish companies that sell things on the internet, and if you browse the ad, the next day the price of that will be increased 50 or €100. If you just browse the ad, because they know what ads you look at, because they have trackers on their website. But the algorithm the tracker on their website, so they know how many people has viewed the ad. And if you view an ad, you have to buy it straight away in order to get it at that price, because if they think a lot of people is looking at that ad, or even if they're not doing that much business and they think just one person has looked at the ad, then the price will go up. And I noticed that's nearly fucking guaranteed. It's nearly guaranteed, you know what I mean? So you have to buy things immediately to get the price that it's supposed to be at. Because if they think you're going to buy it, they'll increase the price even before you buy it. You know, so the price, the price that's advertised really means nothing. Like, you know, and you can't run an economy like this. It's pure corruption, like pure corruption everywhere. Everybody's screwing everybody else. You know, even plumbers and carpenters and electricians and that. Like, if they do a job for you, they usually find something else that's wrong in your house or something, or they break it or something. Like, it's pure corruption on every single level, from the top down to the very bottom. It's a bad mentality. It's like the Irish. Like, we used to be a noble people, but because of the bad example of corruption from the top, now the people on the bottom levels and everybody that's just a common person has a kind of inclination towards a criminal mindset, where they're just screwing everybody in whatever transaction they have. Everybody's screwing
I'm all
everybody.
right, Jack. Yeah.
Everybody's screwing everybody else. Like, you know.
Yeah, I mean, that's interesting. The point about the lockdown, the Christian lobby, we saw this up north when we were up, Karen, that are all against lockdown. That was quite interesting. Their idea is, or the idea of the Christian is, whatever will be, if you have faith in God, you don't need a lockdown. A lockdown is actually communism personified. It's totalitarian, state control over everything and taking away your right, freedom. Whereas Christianity is actually on the freedom side of it. It's quite interesting that's they're taking a view that is looked on as quite anti-establishment, when people would have originally said, "Oh, the Christians are all very well." They're actually more rebellious than you think. You know,
but the only thing is, you're seeing that up in the north, but we're seeing it there. The compliance down the south is very, very high. You know, it's like they close the churches, but then that's it. And like, they don't seem to kind of want to rebel. You know,
we need to go back to this.
Yeah.
No, seriously, you know, there'd be no lockdown if we were run by Christians. The fact is that we've gone communist, it's atheist, and it's all state control. If you believe,
I totally agree with you. I couldn't agree with you more.
If you believed in God and you were,
I believe in God. I believe in God.
Yeah,
I do.
You would be completely against this lockdown, because there is whatever will be. God will have trust, have faith in God, and you will be okay. You know, the old thing about viruses and stuff, colds and stuff, was you have to let them take their course. You can't fight a virus. Your body, as you says, your immune system fights the virus. We can only treat the symptoms, but you don't fight a virus. They could have kept it out of the country in the first place. But
isn't it interesting, though? I mean, like the Ebola virus has raised its head now since 1976 and so many different levels, and it was always in Africa, right? Now, I know it's a very deadly virus and it can kill very, very quickly, and I've heard and read about the symptoms and what happens to the body, and it is disgusting and it's horrific. But funnily enough, they don't lock down the world over it. They don't lock down anything. They take precautions and they do social distancing, because obviously it's so contagious and you would get it very quickly. It's not like COVID, it's much more deadlier, but there's no lockdown. That's why you need to tell people this COVID is nothing, and the lockdowns have nothing to do with your health, and people are not getting it. And I find it very disturbing that the church, the higher leaders of the church and Catholic Church in the South are not fighting back quick enough. They're allowing these churches to be closed.
I think we've lost our religion. I mean, Paul's making the point that this faith has been used to control us in the same base. I would kind of disagree in that religion's control is not as bad as commie control. That's totalitarianism. And look at the rights. You're seeing it firsthand. Look at religion that has not took our rights away like this.
That's true. I can see where he's coming from, but it's not as. I mean, at least
to me, it's not as bad.
Yeah,
it's not as bad. Nowhere near as bad.
When you're putting everybody under state control through their wages, through their movement, through their travel, that is communist control. But if I said that to anyone in my family or my friends, work colleagues, they would not see this as communism. They would see it as the way the government wants you to see it. They would see it as a health thing. But I would love to know, like nurses and doctors, when they're sorry?
because they won't have a debate about such an extraordinarily important issue. They won't have a debate. They've been invited to have Dolores Cahill on, and they won't do it. I smell a rat. What have they got to hide? Let people have a debate about it, and people can make their mind up about it. But they're not doing it. They're making your mind up for you. So I go on ahead.
What I was going to say is, like, when nurses and doctors are training and they're learning about the body and the anatomy and they're getting to know what they have to do, they learn about the immune system. But what happened between then and now? It's almost their instincts are gone. I mean, we're in flu vaccine mode at the moment, and I'm already getting all the grief that goes with it. Pop-up clinics all over the place in the hospital. And the push is on, 80% is their target or above. It's like, let's get them vaccinated instead of giving a different message.
It's an unnatural way to deal with the virus. You don't deal with viruses. I studied virology. You just have to let them take their course.
If they do, and I totally agree with you. I know some viruses are more deadly than others. You have Ebola and you have anthrax. You have all these deadlier viruses, but likes of coronaviruses are a family. I mean, human race has seen so many viruses over the thousands of years, and we still survive.
This virus would have been around 100 years ago. It probably would have killed people. Now, we are in a moral dilemma because people have lived longer, and this is going to attack elderly people. But 100 years ago, there was the Spanish flu virus that did kill a lot of people, but there wasn't a lockdown. That did kill a lot of people. But I think if we just protect the elderly, Paul's making the point. What do you think, DT? What do you think, religion or communism or neither? What do you think?
I know it's a kind of thing among nationalists that we have to be sort of, sorry to just roll this low, but I'm doing this now. Like there's a kind of this thing among, what are you going to say? Go on.
I would say Paul's making the point in Catholic Church destroyed. I know there was a lot of problems in the Catholic Church, so obviously there was with the
I take his point too, yeah.
But I wouldn't say that's the point of the Catholic Church. I think that was because there was corrupted individuals within the church that were allowed to the church's teachings as
well. I just want to say, like people can be Catholic if they want to, but they're going to have to be Catholic sort of independent of the institution, because the institution is not fit for purpose anymore. If you get my meaning. So like the idea that, like, I just want to, might be a tangent, like, but like just the idea that nationalists should all be Catholic or something, or that we should be pro-Catholic, like, well, Catholicism as a faith is not independent of the institution, right? You have to have the sacraments. You have to go to mass. You have to be in a state of grace. You need sacrament of confession. You need the mass. You need all these sacraments. So
that's a good point. Some people do think you can be a Catholic without going to the church itself.
Well, you have to be a Catholic independent of the institution, because the institution is not fit for purpose anymore. And like groups like the Lavender Mafia have totally subverted the church and the seminaries. So, and the priests and the bishops and all, they're all complicit, and they're all openly heretical, either informal or formal heresy. Like most of the time, it's formal heresy. But actually, according to Catholic doctrine, like the vast majority of priests and bishops would be de facto excommunicated, like just automatically. But because they're heresies, and even that thing with Vatican II was like a massive liberalization of the church, when a very strict, a very intolerant religion suddenly became the most tolerant sort of global religion of the world. And that it can't do that without actually violating some of its canonical statements, where if you do this, then you're excommunicated. All these things. My point is that like nationalists can't save the Catholic Church. Like it would take hundreds of years and thousands of nationalists flooding all the seminaries, acting gay enough so that they don't get expelled, and then winning the approval of the gay bishops, and then becoming a priest, becoming a bishop, becoming a cardinal, and then taking over the Pope position. But then it's an international thing that you'd have to do, and then even then the religion is universalist, so it's not really a nationalist religion anyway, so like you'd have to be Catholic independent of the church, like, because the church is not fit for purpose anymore. It's like
Gina Franson does that. She actually goes towards the Eastern Orthodox, as opposed to
Well,
the
the Eastern Orthodox is not corrupt at all. Like they were subverted by the KGB back during the Soviet Union, but they survived that, and it's sort of there's kind of all these fake patriarchs that are actually puppets of the CIA and stuff that try to create a split in the church. Well, some of these churches have actually reconciled with the Russian church now, so like they're in the Russian sphere of influence. So like going to the Orthodox would be an option, right? But the Catholic Church, the Novus Ordo Catholic Church, would not be fit for purpose anymore. And as far as the traditional Catholic cults, like even though they keep the authentic religion, they are cults and they are full of misfits and twisted individuals, and they don't have actual canonical standing in the church. So the whole thing is problematic if you're spiritually scrupulous about it, you know. But just independent. You have to be independent of the church. Like you like it's like these prophecies of the end of the world, like stuff where the church wouldn't be available as an institution. Like these prophecies have come true, but it's not the end of the world. Like, you know, in reality, it's not the end of the world. The world is still here, but the institution itself is just unavailable because it's so corrupt and incompetent. So nationalists, you know what I mean? I don't get this idea where nationalists usually go with Catholics because Ireland was historically a Catholic country. Like, well, you know, you can have a private belief in Catholicism, but the future, if you're going to have a Catholic Ireland, the future would involve you rescuing the church, which you can't do. So I don't see how nationalism has to kind of shield for Catholicism. It doesn't even, like, Catholicism doesn't even want you to shield for it. Like, we get denounced by like the Archbishop of Dublin and everything. Like, you know, like they don't even want nationalists in shielding for them. You know, like, so it's not like we're shielding for people for an institution that's on our side. The institution is manifestly against us as well, you know.
I smelt a rat when the last pope was abdicated, as it were. He didn't go the full. Why did that happen? And they got the new guy who's doing their.
And he's still alive, isn't he?
Yeah, the other guy, Ratzinger, the German guy, he's still there. So why was that? I think it was because he was more of a traditionalist and he wasn't doing their bidding enough. So they moved him out of the way to get this guy in who's actually just going to be more their man. I think it has been taken over by a corrupt cabal, like a Freemasonic cabal or whatever, you know.
Yeah, well, there was a rumor he was more traditionalist. He was the one that lifted the ban on the Latin Mass, and when he was the prefect of the Congregation for the Doctrine of the Faith, which was something that was supposed to ensure the conformity with Catholic doctrine in all the institutions of the church. But he sort of, like, he didn't really do a very good job, but he was at least not an open liberal as Pope Francis is. But
he's a total liberal.
Yeah, he retired. He stepped down. Like, I think it's like I was watching on Sky News some commentator saying, like, oh, it's like this phrase out of the Divine Office, the nunc dimittis, like, you know, now nunc dimittis servum tuum domine. Like, now you can let your servant go in peace, as if his work is done. Now you can go in peace. Well, your work is not done, like, because you're the Pope. Like, you have to be there till you're dead. I mean, I think it was an act of despair because it was rumored around that time, or on all these Catholic websites that I used to look at, that the internal census of the church, where they were going to show the total comprehensive infiltration of the Lavender Mafia into all the institutions of the church everywhere, all over the globe, was going to be released. And it was read by Pope Ratzinger, and he, maybe out of an act of despair, he just retired to prayer, because the only thing that could fix the church is a miracle.
Well, you know? Paul is saying that he stood down because his abuse of kids was about to surface, so he stood aside to not damage the organization.
I don't believe that he actually done that himself. Like, I don't think there's any evidence that. Like, I think that, like, the more traditionally minded clergy will be less likely to have that particular voice.
Yeah.
If you get what I'm saying. It's the ones that are more authentic about their practice of Catholicism and that wouldn't be like child abusers would also.
I agree with you in that. Yeah.
That's
what saddens me about the church. I think when I grew up, I'm not saying I went to mass every Sunday, whatever, and it kind of came and went. But it just saddened me that, you know, regardless of what's going on in the world, that the Catholic Church could be better if it wasn't infiltrated, because it is infiltrated by bad people. I mean, you see so much corruption. They won't even look at protect children, even though they are bound to. And then they pass them on to another parish. I know they probably can't do that anymore, but they're not even trying to even go against the government on abortion and all that kind of stuff. They're definitely a corrupt organisation, and you have to have. I mean, you're saying they're the traditional ones.
They're
not going to abuse kids.
They're not standing up to the government. You're right. You're right. They're not standing up to the government agenda at all.
Yeah,
they're totally silent, and they're not even trying to even stand up to government on closing or keeping their churches open for mass. They could turn around and say, "Sorry, no, we're keeping our churches open for mass. I don't care what you say." That to me is stronger evidence of communist rule. They just want to keep everything closed.
Karen, I'll tell you a story, right? Jordan, I'll tell you a quick story, right? During the homosexual marriage referendum, I met a priest in the street, and I was telling him I was going to vote no, I was going to vote against it, and he was trying to convince me to vote for it, and he's a Catholic priest trying to convince me to vote for gay marriage.
Right, okay, that's unusual, isn't it?
Well, no, it's not really unusual when you consider the state of the Catholic Church. Like, your man was afraid I was recording him because I was arguing against gay marriage, and he was trying to portray gay marriage as a positive and telling me to vote for it. I was saying I was going to vote against it. I was the one that was defending the faith, like, as a layperson. He was the one. He was a priest, and he was in favor of same-sex marriage.
Did he go into why? Was he a younger man, a younger priest, or an older priest, or?
I'd say he was about in his 40s or something like that.
Right. Okay.
He was probably he's probably part of the Lavender Mafia. He's probably these homosexual priests that are going
out. Sorry, Colin?
You know, it's going against the Bible. I mean, it's clearly stated that man shall not lie with man. Now, I'm not saying that that's agreed. Gay people are entitled to have a civil partnership. Absolutely. I said that last week. And they should be welcomed into the church. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that you have to condone the gay activity, but you can welcome them into the church. You know, I think there's a difference there.
No, well, the idea is like
gay marriage to me is against the sacrament of matrimony. So the Catholic sacrament, it seems to run contrary to that. So that seems to be a contradiction of that priest to say that.
Well, the idea of going to church is that you conform to the Catholic moral teaching and you conform to Catholic doctrine. So, like, if somebody was in a homosexual partnership or a relationship or anything like that, like, they're first of all, they're not allowed to get communion in the church, and they're out of communion with the church anyway because they have this heresy of homo heresy, basically. Like, they shouldn't go there unless they're going to confession. Like, if I wanted to be Catholic about it, like, I'm not Catholic, like, you know what I mean, but just saying, like, if I wanted to be a bit autistically precise about what I believe in, then, like, I believe the Catholic Church should stand up for what it believes in its purest form, and the purest form would be that, like, you can't let people go to church and just take the piss out of the sacraments. Like, if you want to be,
respect it,
yeah, you know what I mean, like,
that's what I mean, otherwise, you know. People that sort of cherry want to walk out of the marriage. They go in for marriage and they don't want the whole sacrament. They don't want the whole service. They want to change this, that, and the other thing. Well, that's not marriage, really. It's not a marriage, sir. But they're better having a civil partnership, you know.
Well, yeah, like, even if people are divorced or if they commit an abortion but they're not sorry, you can't get communion, you can't get the Eucharist. Like, when you I suppose technically, like, in reality, you can, but you're not supposed to, because that's another sin on top of it. Like, you know what I mean? That'd be another sin on top of it, because you're not worthy to receive communion, but then you get it anyway. So then, like, it's another sin on top of it.
The only thing is, we've no fresh blood coming into the Catholic Church, because you don't see young men going into it. And then who's to say they wouldn't be liberal either? Because what young man in his 20s would be traditional?
Yeah,
you know.
So I make a point as well. There's a point that can be made. There's a point that can be made as well. The more liberal it's gone, the less people are going. So people are making the point that if it went back to its more traditional values, it would welcome people back in and it would actually stand for something a bit more. It's actually lost standing for, and that's coinciding with the numbers going down, the more liberal it's got. It's a bit like the COVID thing. The more they're doing things, the more you wear masks, the more the numbers go up. So that makes a nonsense out of the masks. They brought the masks in the summer, compulsory, and then the numbers have gone up. So that doesn't seem to make sense. But the more liberal the church has become, the less people are going. I think if it became more traditional, I think people would start going back to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, they would. They would start going back to it. Yeah, that's true. Like, what I mean?
There
like,
is a certain amount of comfort going to mass as well. It's like a comfort blanket to a certain degree. I found sometimes I went and it was nice to go. Even when we were in Glenconkill, there was a church there in the village, and I went in a couple of times. I went to mass, but I went in a couple of times just to sit there, for about 15 minutes.
I remember going in and I saw the missalette, and do you know what it was all about? Welcoming Islam into Ireland. I read that, and I thought, that's all very well and that's all very well and good. And I think, well, should the Catholic Church not be standing up for its own flock more?
Yeah.
Islamic countries would not be saying welcome in Catholic people.
They would not. You must be joking. I mean, I know I'm not all for different religions going against each other, and they can live side by side, but they can't be in each other's mosque and each other's Catholic Church. Yeah. Catholic Church is Catholic Church. The mosque is the mosque. But you can't. The mosque. The Islamic religion is completely different to traditional Christian way of life and thinking, and we're losing that anyway. But then we have the imams in a Catholic church singing their praying and all that kind of stuff, and to me that's wrong. And we're going to be like England sometime in the future, and it's really ramping up very, very quickly, and that's really disturbing.
Yeah, I would also people slag off the Catholic. People are slagging off the Catholic Church. I don't think the Catholic Church itself, the doctrine of it, is in any way evil. There were evil people that came into it and abused it. But Islam, for example, is by definition you have to kill non-Muslims. That's pure Islam. Now, there's nothing in the Catholic Church which says you have to kill non-Catholics. So there are difficult things written in the Bible, but nobody takes them literally, But pure Islamic terrorism takes the Quran literally.
Yeah, everything's literal with them, and they seem to live by it more than, say, a Catholic person would. A Catholic person will say, "Okay, we'll read it." Unless you get people who study the Bible at great length, you will get people who.
It says in your New Testament, if your hand offends you, cut it off. But nobody does that. But if that was written in the Quran, that's why they cut off hands in the Quran, because it's taken literally. The difference is in this country we had the Reformation, we had the Enlightenment. And the state runs the country, not the religion, but in Islamic countries, the religion runs the country. So you can't compare the two doctrines. You can't compare the two ideologies, because Muslim countries are run by the church, Sharia law is run by the Quran.
Yeah,
we're run by secular law, not church law.
Yeah.
So that's why it's not taken literally either.
Yeah, the church used to see itself as a state unto itself. Basically,
especially in the 1930s.
Yeah, it comes from basically the historical situation where the church actually was a state, like the Vatican, or it was an empire, the Holy Roman Empire, and then it reduced. It got reduced territory, and that was just the Vatican. But the church, in canon law, it sees itself as a state unto itself, so nobody can judge anyone in the church except for the church, which is not compatible with secular democracy, which wants every citizen of the country to live under the same laws, and it's the thing about it, when we're judging the Catholic Church, or just retrospectively judging the Catholic Church, our experience of it would be Novus Ordo Catholicism, for the most part, where the church was very liberal for the last few decades. So it's like we're kind of contrasting, you know, a kind of liberal religion with an extremely severe Muslim religion. Like we're contrasting that, like when like the authentic Catholic religion would be just as severe as the Muslims, except it probably wouldn't involve as much bloodshed, but it'd be very severe as well. And like so, it's like a secular democracy religion that's being compared with Muslim religion and their home countries are theocracies. You know, so it's like the incompatibility of the West with the Middle East. That's basically what it is. You know. But
yeah, I mean, I don't agree with the wealth hoarding that's involved, but you know,
that I find that disturbing me as well, because faith.
we need to have Paul that we had in 2 weeks ago. He's a real theologian on the Catholic Church. He'd be a good one to debate this better. But I think since we've lost our faith in the country, whether it's Catholic or otherwise, we've lost our original faith, which Patrick brought over. I think we've seen that the whole thing's gone down the tubes, you know. And I think if the faith was brought back, I think we might be slightly better off. The more liberal we've got, the less happier we are. So liberalism actually go hand in hand with happiness. Basically, everybody's having all these rights, but are they happy? No, because they want more and more and more.
Yeah, that's the thing about it, is the gratification, man. You know what I mean? Like the people want instant gratification and like just maximum self-indulgence, or do they want to actually cultivate what's actually more satisfying, the kind of the long-term internal sense of peace and internal satisfaction that you get long-term, even if you're not actually gratifying yourself. You know, like you get quite a strength of self-mastery, which is it's sort of like stoicism or whatever. Like, but you get strength out of self-mastery, and it's not like if you're instant gratification all the time and you're living for the next buzz, then you don't really have control over yourself. So you're going to be internally conflicted and internally frustrated and internally dissatisfied when a certain buzz doesn't render the buzz that you wanted or whatever. Like, and a certain even when you get the buzz, you might not be satisfied at all, because it's just, so it's like, you know what I mean? It's the comparison between like some sort of drug addict with someone that's sober. You get a lot more long-term peace when you're sober. You know, like when you have self-mastery over yourself, and you have more internal peace, long-standing, like long-term internal peace, where your satisfaction is like your internal reservoir of internal fulfillment, where like a lot of people that just gratify themselves don't have that. And I know they don't have that because they're so easily deceived by their own vanity, and they're so easily torn to arrogance, and they're so easily I mean, it's even vanity to even be talking about it, because none of us have 100% self-mastery, like, but like they're so easily willing to deceive themselves for just because the whole perceptual process becomes the process of how to get a next buzz. They're not interested in truth. They're not interested in clarity. You know, they're not interested in pure clarity or self-mastery or anything. Like, everything's about the next buzz. You know.
I suppose that anyone who's in doing art or singing or music, they probably have a certain amount of that piece, because they're putting all their energy and creativity in that. So say, for instance, if you're playing the fiddle or whatever it is, or if you're into art or maybe woodwork or something, you're pouring that energy into that, and you're creating something new. So the buzz is longer. So they're getting great satisfaction of creating something. Maybe you're into, creating furniture or artwork or something like that. And you're talking about people who are constantly looking for the next buzz, whether it's drink, drugs, the next step of the ladder in the career, the next money.
Go with your bow on, Carol.
Sorry?
Are you going to give us a go? Are you going to give us a go with a bow on there?
I'm not. I was practicing before I came on here, but I'm trying to do something out, even with a half an hour every day, But I'm still in my early stages. Huh?
Are you getting to distinguish the different tune types?
Well, we're still doing the jig. It's still early
Right,
days.
okay.
We've only done 3 lessons.
Fair play to you. Fair play.
But I know what DT's saying. Like with technology, we want it now. Like, the internet when the internet started back in the 90s, we were all fascinated by this thing. We could just get on the line, see what's on the internet. But now it's like we expect everything to be there for us. If we don't have the internet, we lose our heads. We don't have access to Facebook or social media. It's like we want things yesterday, and we kind of want things done even on the other parts of our lives as well, like work or social stuff, whatever. We kind of, if we don't get it now, it's like, oh, it's too late. And I have to say, sometimes I'm guilty of that myself, thinking, okay, maybe wait a couple of days for something to get back to me or whatever. But it's like instant gratification on anything, like food, drink, entertainment, TV, buying stuff online. We want it now, and we wanted it. And it's like, it's that kind of that drive and that demand, and the technology does give it to us, but
there's a point I wanted to make
up
about the. Sorry? They made this point in a program last night up in the north about the fact that during the COVID thing, half the hospitals were all empty because people weren't coming in for their cancer treatments and what have you.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of dissenting voices
spotlight.
Coming out. Yeah, did you see it?
No, I only heard about it. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this is not going to come out well against the decision makers that are making these decisions about lockdown. People weren't going to hospitals, so they had capacity. So why are we in lockdown now? It doesn't make sense.
And I know the hospital.
It was like flimsy or shocking evidence that they're now doing this lockdown, north and south. The evidence is flimsy and shocking. Well, that's not good, is it?
But it proves a point of it's not about health. Why would you want to close down a hospital to get prepared for something else? Cork Hospital came out there last week and said, please come in, we're not bogged down by this. And yet you're told, oh, the ICU is filling up. The ICU is filling up is because there's a mixture of ICU patients with other diseases as well as COVID. Now, I was saying that to you the other day that we have cancer patients coming in or cardiac patients coming in, they have to have a bed afterwards. It's just an automatic response. It's a protocol. And if they don't have the ICU bed after cardiac surgery, they get cancelled. So we haven't got enough beds in the system. And that's what's causing the problem, not because there's loads of COVID patients across the country in ICU. That's not true. So it's mismanagement at so many levels, whether with the COVID or not. And I think the more we need to get beyond.
Did anybody see that Ryan Tubridy thing or hear about the radio thing where he was slagging off people for not wearing masks? Did he make an apology about it, or did you see that?
I heard about it through Ben Gilroy. I think he had something on about it yesterday where he was coming out and saying we're all in the same kind of group, that we're all fringe, and then and also to unfriend the people who are anti-mask. That's division. That is division. And he's no right to say that as a broadcaster. No way. On national radio.
He's a bit hard to take anyway,
I can't. I guess in the stage where I can't even look at the news anymore.
It's just all the one.
Yeah, that's.
It's a wee bit like the time we were in Donegal. I actually thought the debates that were going on are between the centre left and the far left. There's no centre right. And on that debate at prime time last night, there were people debating. There was a guy from PBP was on, and you had somebody from Fianna Fáil, I think, who was centre left. There's nobody else. They won't entertain anybody on the so-called right wing. It's a cold house.
Yeah, they have all that. They have the whole thing rigged like a poker game. It's like a casino where it's all rigged, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And what the government is doing now, actually, what the government is doing now is basically like they're sort of like real arrogantly, patronizingly condemning anyone that doesn't agree with their new bandwagon of political correctness and their new any government initiative. Like it's literally bullying on the state media and bullying in the TV3, which is like as well. Like it's just literally browbeating and bullying and open, obnoxious, condescending bullying of the Irish people. Like and like it's just it's like that's actually a sign of not of their strength but of their weakness. Because if they need to do that, or if they feel, if you take a psychological look at it, if they feel so offended by people that disagree with them that they have to condemn them all the time, that's a sign that some serious vulnerability in their positions. And it's just it's not a coincidence that the regime, the Fianna Fáil, Fine Gael duo party, or whatever you want to call it, the regime, like the Free State regime, was nearly voted out of power permanently in the last election. Like so they're on the way out. Like, and they're not coming back because most of their voters are like pensioners who are bussed in from nursing homes who haven't got a clue what they're voting for anyway. You know what I mean? So like their voters will all be dead when the regime is voted out. That's it. They're gone permanently.
I've often asked the question, where do they get their votes from? But the only thing is the alternative isn't very good anyway. I wouldn't have fancied the alternative either.
There's no opposition. But we're not sitting in the door.
Yeah, I don't fancy the alternative either. But personally, from your own situation, right, because I'm on the dole, I'll get more social welfare if the left gets into power. And if Sinn Féin are the main party in the next government, if they're the next regime, right, there'll be hate speech laws and stuff like this, even more strict than they are now. So that's going to censor me as well. And other than that, I'll actually break me buttocks laughing when Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael get permanently voted out of power. Permanently, the nail is in the
good thing.
Yeah, that's like they're in the coffin, they're in the ground, and I'm going to shite in my grave now. Like that's the thing. I will fucking wet myself laughing like when they get permanently voted out of power, because the amount of times I've been shit on by Gardaí and stuff like this, and to actually have ex-IRA men in as the Minister for Justice, and they have to take orders from this ex-provo or current provo. I don't think it's actually possible to leave something like that anyway, right? The fact that they have to all these people who have been abusing the working class now have all these rabble rousers in government, and now that they have to take orders from ex-IRA men and stuff like this, like in some ways, from my own personal situation, it'll be a dream come true. But I still have a conscientious objection to it, is because even though I'd be very left wing on my policies, in my economic policies specifically, right, I still don't agree with the mass immigration, right? And I think that like the next thing that's going to happen is there's going to be a left wing regime, which will be more independent of the Brits. But that has to kind of go through an internal evolution where it has to kind of has to give rise to the next step after leftism. But what comes after leftism? It's all the evolution of the political psyche of the Irish. Like, what comes after leftism? Like, this is the worldwide trend where the so-called right wing is on the rise everywhere. Like, they've gone through this evolution already, but we haven't. Like, so we have to get rid of this stale regime that didn't deserve to be in power in the first place. Get rid of them, and then there's a Sinn Féin regime, and then after that there's going to be a political next step, which is going to be the right will be born of the internal contradictions within leftism. So the right will be the next thing that comes after that. But will it all be in time in the next 20 years? Will it happen fast enough so that it happens before the Irish are a minority in their country and they can actually do something about the mass migration? Will it happen fast enough? I don't know. That's the thing. Like, we have to make this evolution in thought, evolution in the Irish psyche happen as quickly as possible.
That's true. I agree, because you're go on saying.
Leftism has become corrupt. I mean, we would have approached it from the left wing anyway, but the left wing's become mutated into a globalism thing, which isn't really left at all. It's another global power, and like the EU. It's not on the interest of the working class. I mean, they throw a few crumbs on the table to the working class, but they don't really have their interests at heart. So I think they're traders to it. The ones that are looking after the working class are the so-called right-wing parties.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the thing, Cattleman, about leftism. Like, leftism to some degree was undefined because people most leftists didn't bother reading Karl Marx or Friedrich Engels, so it was actually undefined for the vast majority of leftists. And then in America, the leftism sort of became a hybrid with this capitalist individualism and consumerism, and then you get this weird hybrid of leftism, which is like LGBT cults and transgender stuff and all this. You get this weird hybrid, and then that becomes the definition of leftism, just based on nothing more than the power of the American empire to impose this new foundation of leftism on all the leftists all over the world. You know what I mean? So it's actually some sort of Western leftism. And that's why in China, in the communist country in China, they call all these weird, bizarre gay leftists from the West, they call it the white left. Like, it's the white left. That's what they call it. It's not the real left. It's the white left. That's what they call it. It's a weird sort of perverted form of leftism mixed with capitalism, mixed with consumerism, mixed with individualism. It's totally against what original leftism was. You know what I mean? Just like, if I want to be autistically pure about it, I have to say they're actually contradicting their own foundations a lot. Like, because all this leftism was supposed to be materialist, supposed to be pro-science, and then they're redefining genders and stuff, and they're inventing new genders. That's nothing to do with science, like, you know what I mean?
But why do the left want to change the basic anatomy of a human being? I mean, why do they want me to be change me into from woman to a man? Why do you think that's okay?
Yeah.
Is it also freedom? It's not really freedom if I think I feel like a man.
But that's where it comes from. Like, it's like a lot of the leftists in America will be like these gay cultists. Like, so they're just carrying out some sort of homosexual imperialism over society. You know, that's what it is, homosexual imperialism. You know, and it's like this stuff. Like, originally it comes from a foundation of like leftism as the matter mixed with a hybrid of like capitalism, individualism, stuff like this. So that's what it is. It's not real leftism. Like, it's not real leftism.
It's nothing to do with the working class now. Because I mean, I used to be left. No. I went in because of privatization.
That's why I left it. Because I thought this is not to do with what I went into it for. It was all about It was all about mass immigration, the aggressive LGBT agenda, and pro-abortion, pro-breakdown of the marriage. I thought, I'm not about that. I was interested.
It's like anything goes. If you want to be a horse, they would fight your right to be a horse, and that's the impression I get. I mean, it's almost as if the human being.
For horses, you know.
Sorry?
It wasn't about horses. It wasn't about horses that brought me into it. You know, it was about the proud working classes being anti-establishment. Actually, not about horses.
What I'm saying is, if you want to be something else, you would support it. Instead of looking, hang on a second. It's like, humans are humans. Oh yes, some people may be gay or straight or whatever, but like, you know, to me, the left-wing side of politics was all about the working class, supporting the working class, getting their rights and making sure they're okay, getting their, you know, having a good wage and all that, and having a good standard of living. But if it's all about, you know, individualism, as GT says, but it's all about me instead of my family and my colleagues or whatever, then that's not about community. Because I remember sitting on the streets about, you know, water charges and all that kind of stuff, and like all about going against privatization. That's what brought me in. But as time went on, it's all about, they were obsessed with going to the gay pride. They're obsessed about this. They're obsessed about everything. And well, hang on a second. I left for different reasons, but you know,
they're obsessed about that, and they forgot it's like the Labour Party in Britain. The last thing they're pro is the working class. You know, they're everything else but the working class. You know, so I mean, Brexit summed it up perfectly. Brexit was the working classes that voted for it, by and large.
It was a voice, a very strong voice,
Yeah, and the Labour Party became pro-EU.
Do you remember your man George Galloway?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
He was pro-Brexit. Labour Party, wasn't he?
Yeah,
but he was pro.
Yeah, he has his own show on RT, the Russian news channel, but
Yeah,
he's a regular guest on RT. But he was basically a socialist hero for his whole life, and now he's denounced as like far right fascist for what? Because he's against Brexit, or because he's against American imperialism, or because he's against transgenderism. Like he's denounced as a fascist, but he has a long history of like being a socialist hero during the coal mining strike. So it just shows you how people turn on their own, or how genuine leftists are actually expelled from being called left. So genuine leftists are not called left by the left. If you're a genuine leftist, the left won't call you a leftist. They'll call you a fascist. You know
he was kicked out of the.
He was pro Scotland staying in the UK, and he was pro Brexit. So a lot of the lefties didn't like either of those things, you know. But as Irish nationalists, we can't ignore the island of Great Britain because it's Celtic. It was originally a Celtic island, and the linkage between Ireland and Scotland,
we're all in the same area. Yeah.
Yeah, but the linkage between Ireland and Scotland, for example, and Wales is very strong because of the Celtic languages. So we can't forget about the fact that Great Britain, is an island, was a Celtic island before the Brits, the English came in. Anyway, my voice is going a bit. Look, folks.
Yeah, I just want to say this, like, you know, I suppose there's kind of a mysticism that goes with political beliefs, right? So a lot of nationalists might get this kind of mysticism of like, oh, what if we built this real efficient army and we invaded Northern Ireland and we took it back? Like, you know, we have to get it back. Like, we have to get it back. But like, I just want to say, like, I hope that we get it back by turning Ireland into basically Taiwan or Singapore or South Korea or somewhere. Like, economically, we turn it into an economic powerhouse. It's very easy to do that because we can soak up the capital from the rest of Europe if we have a low wage economy, right? So we turn Ireland into an economic powerhouse. We get a shitload of money, right? We make Ireland a brilliant, very rich country to live in, and we just write them a check for 50 billion pounds, euros or pounds, whatever. We write them a check, 50 billion pounds here. We buy it off you? You know, instead of, it doesn't need to be any more bloodshed. It doesn't need to be any more. Doesn't need to be any more troubles or bloodshed or anything. Like we just buy it back off them, you know.
Mm.
And if we wanted to go, if we wanted to go smoothly without any kind of opposition, we set the loyalists up as their own independent jurisdiction area that's within our borders, but it's just like they run it themselves, so there won't be any other troubles. You know, like we just set it up like that. Like it'd be very easy to do. We just buy it off them and say, all right, you run your areas, but as far as you're concerned, you're part of the republic now.
That's kind of what we say, that they can have it could be like a sort of a federal thing where you have an assembly up there anyway. It could be run under a federalised system within the country, the island of Ireland, because I don't think a lot of the unionists don't like the way Britain's going. It's basically becoming non-English, non-British. It's Muslim. So what's their linkage with that for? I mean, it's a nonsense. So, I mean, people like some of the loyalist ones up there are actually quite on board with what we say. You know.
Yeah, we have to make them want to be part of us, because if we don't if we're trying to do it by force, they're going to resist. Obviously, the same as work. Yeah. You know what I mean? You have to make Ireland such a great country that we basically. You know what I mean? We basically make them want to be part of us because we have more jobs, we have a brilliant health service, we've education for everybody,
we've government as well. Yeah. They're not going to come with us now at the moment.
Yeah, like we just make Ireland just a brilliant country to live in, and then they'll want to be part of us. You know, so we just buy it back.
Claiming oil and gas and all that kind of thing. Be a bit like Norway. If we were state running our own oil and gas and all that kind of stuff, we'd be rich country. And then we'd be able to reclaim.
Ireland's not going to be a rich country by staying. Ireland's not going to be a rich country by staying in
the food and both happen together.
Has to strike out and take advantage of the fact that Britain's pulled out, so Ireland needs to pull out and take advantage of it. The EU's holding us back. Look, folks, that's over now. I'm going to wrap it up a bit tonight. My voice is going. So, all right, folks. Happy enough?
Okay.
Anything else you want to say? Karen or DP?
Well, all I'd say is, and I know we're talking about Brexit tonight, but I mean, Brexit Boris needs to turn around and say to EU, listen, we're making a no deal, we're getting out, no EU officials, we want Brexit, we voted for it 4 years ago, and just cut the ropes if the EU continue to kind of keep that control going, then Brexiteers are not getting what they want, and and we need to start getting beyond. What I think we need to do is, I know we have all these streams going on every week and with different topic, but we're all talking in the same room and we're not reaching the people in the street. We need to bring this out into the street, and this message of communism and nationalism. We need to get beyond Facebook, and we need to change. And there's different ways we need to do it. Whether it's posters on the street, whether it's leaving leaflets on the buses, doing something that's different, because we're not reaching the people on the street.
Do you want to take some of the leaflets and put them on the bus then? You can take some of the leaflets while. Do you want to take some of the leaflets while you're on the bus and drop them on the bus then?
Yeah, but do it discreetly. I wouldn't be doing it.
Be my guest if you want it while we're on lockdown.
Yeah. But even so, do you know where we do the canvas?
Yeah.
There's a bank. The bank there. There's There's places that people do put posters up there. We need to have posters there too.
Right.
Say even something like a message. We're talking about the church tonight a lot, and how the government is taking the right to worship. I don't care what religion you are. You have a right to worship if you want. If you want to walk into a Protestant Catholic church, a synagogue, you have the right to do that. But the right to do that has been taken away from you. Right now in this moment. And under the Constitution, that is enshrined. But the government is trying to take the inalienable rights away. And the inalienable rights is that they're already. The government never gave you them. Yeah, I don't think people get me and you are getting that, but the people in the Joe public on the street is not even aware of that. They're not aware of the rights, and I wouldn't be au fait in everything that's in the Constitution. There's people above me don't know the Constitution inside out. But if we put posters saying, under the Constitution, you have the right to do the following, and they're currently being taken away from you. This is not about your health. Please look at, even get them to even think. Are you aware?
Yeah. I mean,
I get them to ask the question. Sorry?
I mean, the biggest gas field in Ireland and Europe is off the Irish coast, and we can't fish our own waters. I mean, we've made that point 100 times. I agree totally. It's a disgrace. But look, you're right, Karen. That's what we do. Look, DT, do you want to finish up? Final point?
I just want to say about what Paul was saying. There's two comments of Paul O'Neill there, right? He says, Ireland had many revolutions, revolts, got independence, but the Freemasons in Ireland's main lodge beside the Dáil. Yeah, that's right, actually. They have a lodge beside the Dáil.
Yes.
Never changed.
Yeah.
The Freemasons.
It's got a passageway between the bottom of it into the Dáil, so make from that what you will,
Yeah, the never changed, kept wealth status because they are true manipulators on this island. Yeah, that's true. Like, we are run by Freemasons, basically. There's a huge amount of Freemasonic lodges in Ireland, which is probably the reason why it's so nepotistic. And the second comment is Europe's largest gas field is off the Irish coast, but it's owned. I didn't know it was the largest one, but anyway, it's large gas field off the Irish coast, but it's owned by Norwegians. We aren't allowed to fish our own waters, profit with quotas, but factory ships from China and Russia. Yeah, they put quotas on us, but anyone that comes in from another country to fish in our territory is really they get away with everything. So.
It's funny you should mention that. I don't want to delay any further, but I remember sending a clip there to Cotton last week where people on a French boat intimidated a boat of British fishermen during the night and throwing flares at them.
I remember that. Yeah,
that's the kind of thing. Only last week. I mean, that's what they're going to do. I mean, it's like you're not allowed to do your job. That's okay. That's something that you do the whole of your life, and they're not allowed to do their job in their own waters. And the French are coming in and stopping them.
Yeah,
Spanish.
Remember that? Yeah, there's things about Ireland, we've a huge amount of gas and oil, right? We have well, we don't have as much as Venezuela, for example, right? But we have enough to supply our own needs and to even for export as well, right? So we have oil, we have gas, we have a vast agricultural territory. We have the best agricultural food standards in the world, where we've certain species of and stuff which don't exist anywhere else. And we have the biggest fishing zone in Europe. We have rare elements in Ireland. Ireland would be like Africa before it was colonized and industrialized, right? So it's all an untapped, rich, full of resources. But Ireland was never really industrialized, So we have so much stuff, and we have, because we're a unique position, like of an island on the west coast, like of Europe. We're basically like we're so full of resources, but it's because of all this mismanagement and corruption and treachery from the government that the whole thing is a shithole, and it's run by a lot of cartels who just enrich themselves personally while screwing everybody else. And that's the reason why fish cost a lot in the shop, petrol costs a lot, your energy bills are going up. There's a housing crisis. The health services are shambles. There's children go to schools and prefabs and all this. Like we should. And when they built a monument for the millennium, it was like this spike, and it was overpriced. and even when they were building the Lewis in Dublin, like the Lewis cost a few billion when they could have got it done for free if they took up certain offers. Like and it didn't have to cost as much as it cost. Like, you know what I mean? All these mismanagement, and the toll bridge took like 2 million out of the economy last time I checked. It's probably a few more billion now, and that only cost like 50 million to build, but they took 2 billion. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
as a private company outside the state.
Yeah. We it's like privatizing utilities and privatizing the infrastructure. That shouldn't be done. You know what I mean?
I totally agree with that.
We give you 50 million euros, and you have to give me 2 billion back. Like, these are the bad deals that the government has done. Through sheer corruption and sheer stupidity and sheer incompetence. They've mismanaged the whole thing. They've run it into the ground. And there has to be some sort of consequences for that down the line. You know what I mean?
Of course it does. And you see it everywhere. The privatization of any kind of utility, you see it everywhere, whether it's health or it's oil. And we should be swimming in a sea of money. If we had our own oil, our own gases, we should be like Norway. We should be swimming in a sea of money. And we're not. Sorry?
When you look at your hometown, Drogheda, I just thought it's a global cesspit. Walking through that day, I just thought, what has this place become? But look, guys, that's a story for another day. But maybe we'll do another chat about Masonic Freemasonry sometime next time.
That would be and I'll come back to you with the other idea I have. Actually,
a lot of linkage. I mean, Daniel O'Connell was a Freemason. The United Irelanders were Freemasons. So there's a lot to talk about there. But look, I'm gonna have to wrap it up, guys. Have someone okay.
All right.
Okay. I was going to say, sorry?
All right. So.
Okay, I'll say goodnight, okay? TT. And thanks for coming on.
Thanks for coming in.
All right, thanks everybody.
Yeah, thank you. See you next time.
Bye.
Yeah. Break free.
To get it.
Right.
To get it. I want to break free. Thanks for coming in, guys. We'll see you again.
All right.
And everything. Thank you. Good night.
All right.
Free from COVID, free from
corruption, free from the regime. Yeah, go on. Well, get out here.
Islam.
Throw the out of it. All right, see you, boy. Throw the out of it. Go on.